So Stephen has some really interesting and quite inspiring views, and what I'd like to do now is get this discussion going, but it'd be great to hear a little bit more about our panelists' backgrounds before we jump right into it. So to do that, first to my left is Professor Teri Kramer. He is coming from the global mobile communications background, and he's an executive of 30 years of experience in that industry at Vodafone Group and a variety of other smaller growing technology companies. In 2009, he was named regional president of Vodafone Americas, and since completing his assignment at Vodafone in 2010, he has served on a variety of boards, including the World Affairs Council of Northern California, the Board of Visitors at UCLA's Economics Department, and the National Advisory Board at the Democratic National Committee. Dan Bernbaum, to his left, serves as head of business development for Technicolor Pulse, which is Technicolor's digital end-to-end content management platform. At Technicolor, Bernbaum works with both studios and post-production companies to make film production more efficient and secure. He holds a BS from Northwestern University and an MBA from good old UCLA Anderson. Fay Arjomandi joined NantWorks in August 2014 and currently is the CEO of NantMobile, responsible for mobile digital and health for network. Prior to joining NantWorks, she was the CEO of Vodafone Zone since January 2011, which has become the global incubation center for Vodafone Group and the beta brand for Vodafone consumers in UK, Italy, Spain, Germany, and Egypt. Fay is an inventor and has authored 12 patents. She has been recognized as one of Vancouver's top 40 under 40. Pretty exciting that Stephen wants to make Mars look like British Columbia. Has represented Canadian tech and innovation at the White House. She holds a Bachelor of Applied Science degree in electrical engineering from Concordia University. Alan Chen, at the very end right there, is a systems engineer in the Entry, Descent, and Landing Systems and Advanced Technologies Group at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He's currently the cruise and EDL phase lead for the Mars 2020 project. And he holds...
it's going to fly on our rover, so that's what Stephen was talking about there.
All
the
right.
oxygen generator, that's one of our payloads.
Fantastic. I'm sure that the commentary will be even more accurate then. He holds an SB and SM degree in aeronautics and astronautics, from MIT, and also an MBA from UCLA Anderson. So it's an honor and privilege to have you all here. Thank you so much for your time. We have a range of topics to dive into, so I'd like to just begin. Responding to the talk, though, what did you all think? Is it possible with the technology that Stephen proposed that we can first even get to Mars? And where's the world headed from a technological standpoint? What does all that technology really mean for us? Maybe Alan, we could start with you.
I kind of have different feelings about these kind of talks. Sometimes it can be, they try to jazz things up a little bit to make it a little bit more entertaining. But there's a lot about what he said that I think is, that kind of rings true for me. That exploration certainly is in our blood. It's something that we do, not because there's something in it for us necessarily, but because it's what we do as a race, and certainly what we do as Americans. Pushing out the frontier and all that. I like optimists. I like that people are thinking out that far ahead. As specifically a landing guy, a guy that tries to get us to stop when we get there. I'm a little worried he skipped over that part. We're building big launch vehicles, and then we'll live on Mars with all this other stuff. And miracle occurs here somewhere between the top of the atmosphere and the bottom. Because we're working on human landing systems, and honestly, we are not sure how to do this and what the best ways are. We are developing a range of technologies to try this, but he skipped over a pretty important part there that we probably want to address at some point.
Hey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, first of all, it's great to know that he's turning Mars to Vancouver, BC, where I'm from. But as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to question whether we can go to Mars or not. The famous saying is, with enough trust and money, I can send anybody to Mars or Moon. However, there are a lot of things that you need to think about. Perhaps, one of the things, as he was talking about Mars and radiation and all that, I was thinking about, what about disease management? What kind of diseases are we going to be prone to when we live in Mars?
Sure.
And then the next thing I was thinking about, actually, fashion. Strangely enough, every movie you see about Mars, everybody are in shape with these tight clothes. What happens with oversized and boring set of clothes? And then the other thing, but I mean, if we're really targeting living in Mars 2020 or 2025 or 2050, that means that we actually have improved technology, that it will impact our lifestyle here as well. So if I can travel through 250 million miles between Earth and Mars, I can definitely travel in 10 minutes between San Francisco and LA. If we have these devices that cleans the CO2 to oxygen, then I can definitely use it here on Earth as well to improve the quality of basically air too. So it's good. It's good that people are actually pushing the edge of the envelope and putting this aggressive timeline, because I'm sure it definitely impacts the lifestyle that we have, and it improves quality of life here as well.
Yeah.
Interesting you mentioned diseases. There's actually somebody at NASA whose official job title is Planetary Protection Officer. We're actually trying to be very careful, and there are international treaties about being very careful not to bring microbes or bugs from here to Mars, and not bring stuff back from Mars. We're trying to not create little warm oases for the Martian bugs, if there are any, to thrive, and then us bring them back here. These are things that we have to take seriously, I think, before we get too far down this path as well.
I was just going to add, Zubin, because it's an interesting question how you phrased it. Because to me, there's a difference between can we do this and will we do it. And the will, to me, is very much oriented around where we are at a leading business school is a leadership task. Can we do all the individual pieces of innovation? Absolutely. Question is when the time frame is, et cetera. But will we do it? I would raise several issues here. This is a superhuman task, what's being described, more than probably anything any of us have ever contemplated. In good leadership, you got to first ask yourself, what is the burning platform here, right? Why do you have to go do this? So if you can't prove to people, for example, your existence is going to end in the next couple of years, or you can't say, listen, there's some gigantic gain out there, will you get all the people that have to develop and live and do all these other things to engage in that activity? A second issue, and again, all these are kind of, to me, is, will we do it or not, is can you align all the innovation that happens? So the question is, if they do the food piece, but they don't do the water piece and the oxygen piece, game over. If you do the water piece and not the other two, your game is over. There's a bunch of things that have to happen simultaneously. It reminds me in the mobile business at Vodafone, we first launched mobile internet services. Probably Fay remembers this. This was like in the late 90s. Everybody had all these great ideas. Well, the problem is there wasn't an alignment between the speed of the networks, the quality of the devices, and the services available. You had these really fast networks, crummy devices, black and white ones, and crummy services, and it went nowhere. So can you get alignment around it, to me, is one of the second questions around this innovation. And then the third thing is, and again, I think he kind of glossed over it, is, to me, he talked about Maslow's hierarchy, the basic stuff. Food, water, shelter. But if you expect people to live there, they have to feel a human connectedness. Right. They've got to feel part of an organization and meaningful to somebody else, et cetera. And that piece, I think, would really need to be worked. Because again, at the end of the day, you could send people up there and get some solution, and then people are dead, whether it's for mental or physical reasons, a few months later, and then you haven't really solved the problem.
Yeah, also, I took a great class here, if he still teaches it. Professor Craig Fox teaches a class on managerial decision making. And one of the metrics that he used, just based on a lot of data, is when there's a large-scale project, generally it's about a 20% buffer of how much longer it's going to take than what the original projected time is. And he actually uses it in his talk, because if Elon Musk basically said 10 years, he's tacking on 2 years, which is about 20%. Unfortunately, I think Elon Musk is probably wildly optimistic on the 10 years, and this isn't just a smaller project within a company. This is a massive, large-scale enterprise that he's putting together. But also to build on what Fay said, she was talking about fashion. What about sex, right? I mean, that's one of the drives. And imagine people in these spacesuits trying to do something. We were working on a product at Technicolor for dual view TVs, and we were thinking, well, a husband and wife can sit together and watch a TV show. One person can watch what they want to watch, the other person can watch another show on the same monitor. And then we realized people didn't want to wear glasses while they're watching TV together for intimate moments. Imagine here, you're basically suited up. You can't really interact with your loved ones.
That's a great point. And
now we know you're not going to go to Mars.
Martian relationships, can't wait. I think it's actually very interesting that you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because he did speak exactly to the most bottom rung of that hierarchy. And as you mentioned, the most adjacent one to that is human connectedness. But as we move up that hierarchy, more needs become essential and apparent to the humans that are inhabiting Mars. So I'm wondering, what else do you think will need to be having taken place before humans feel comfortable jettisoning off this planet and going over to the red one?
Yeah, so I would raise one of the first ones. Obviously, it's the industry I've come from, but it's communications.
Right.
So I don't know how many of you saw the movie Interstellar. A great movie, and about travel abroad, etc. They have communications there, kind of video communications, but there's a time lag of when you communicate and when I hear. And I forgot how much it was, 6 months or however long it was. But solving issues like that to me are absolutely fundamental, because what starts happening after a while, if I communicate with you and you've said that, whatever you said 6 months ago, I don't really feel connected anymore. I feel like I'm isolated. And the question is, with a human condition, how long can you live without that connectedness? So I'd say there'd have to be a solution on the communication front that's super high-speed broadband communications, that's immediate, long distance, etc. And you'd need to also have a way to communicate with a community, kind of like what social media has done today, to feel as if it's not just the one-on-one piece, but you're aware of trends and needs, and importantly, where do you fit in to that trend? So I think that whole communications thing would be a huge requirement.
The one-way light time, assuming that we cannot find a faster than speed of light communications, which I'm not aware that we can bend those laws of physics yet. The one-way light time to Mars varies between 5 and 25 minutes or so. So you're not going to do any better than that, and it depends on where the planets literally are at any given time. Usually about 14 minutes one-way light time.
That's really interesting to get that kind of scale to it as well.
Yeah, you're not going to be having a real-time conversation with somebody here on Earth.
Yeah, and we're also accustomed to, everybody has a LTE speed phone right now. It's going to get better. We're going to go from 2K to 4K imagery, right? You're going to see people in super, super high res. So we're going to become used to that, and then all of a sudden you're going somewhere where, you may just get a little audio feed or a very, very pixelized video feed. It's going to take a lot of getting used to.
I can't do much about the real-time stuff, but we can certainly improve the bandwidth. That's certainly something folks are working on. Optical communications is a big deal. The NASA operates the Deep Space Network it has for 50, 60 years. Actually, JPL does, which is a series of these radio antennas scattered around the world, in three different places around the world. It is in NASA's long-term plans to replace those with laser optical comm to talk to then orbiters going around Mars, which will make it much easier to send big things there fast. So.
I'm going to throw in something else, why did people start immigrating to U.S. after Christopher Columbus discovered U.S., right? And there was nothing here. In fact, land was the reason why people moved here. Or other, gold was another reason, resources, right? So job, setting up a new lifestyle, having opportunity were all the reasons why the ancestors moved here, right? So, that goes back to Teri's comment on what is the burning platform. Now, is there a burning platform, or is there basically opportunity for people to move there? It's hard to say. However, once it's there, probably it's going to happen. It's all, again, before Christopher Columbus discovered U.S., America, and nobody knew about it. And then as it got discovered, people start moving into it. Before social networking gets created, nobody knew about it. But then when social networking got created, everybody started using it, right? So to some degree, the reason is part of the discovery as well. Again, I personally can't find a reason right now as I'm sitting here, but as gets discovered and people go, and as he said, somebody's going to create a restaurant, and hopefully nobody's going to ship ISIS there. But I'm sure the platform could get created, for people to go there. But there should be a platform. There should be a reason.
Well, I think it's really interesting about the burning platform and the leadership that needs to take place in order to get us to somewhere like that. I mean, bringing this talk down to earth, so to speak, Stephen mentioned actually that about a third of the missions that are launched actually even get to Mars. And I'm wondering from a leadership perspective, what needs to happen in order for something supernatural to occur? So whether it be getting to Mars or trying to accomplish something really monumental here on Earth, what does a leader have to do from a vision setting standpoint, operation, team standpoint, in order to get that achievement?
To me, there's 2 or 3 very important things. Number one, you've got to say, what does success look like? Again, the success that got identified here, to me, was the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. You want to have a sustainable society. Long-term, people need to live there, lots of people in scale, in mass, et cetera. Without any assistance, I would have said success looks like. So if you define it that way, then it kind of drives what are all the things you need to do. That connectedness is now going to be part of the equation that it wasn't there before. So that to me is number one. Number two, you've got to assemble a group of resources to deliver on this. And those resources, I would beg to differ in my own point of view. For something this big, you can't just have the private sector do it. To me, you need, we called, when I was at the State Department, multi-stakeholder organizations. You need government, civil society, and industry. Because government obviously is charged with protecting society, providing resources, et cetera. That's where the vast majority of resources and research, et cetera, occurs. You need the innovative spirit of industry. Elon Musk is a great example of that. And you need a civil society, people that are individuals that talk about what life can be like. And so I think a leader's got to galvanize all of that. When I first heard this described, it sounded to me like a bunch of wealthy people flying up to Mars, and they spend $200,000-300,000 and come down. That's not success here. So I think that vision piece and then galvanizing the resources, and as we talked about, this burning platform, either your existence is threatened or there's this great outcome to get people really excited about it.
You guys all agree with that, or anything else would be, from a leadership perspective, you need to have happen?
You need to have vision. I mean, definitely I agree with what Teri said, but you need to have vision and passion and focus at the same time. It's like a combination of 3 things. You see the vision. I was going to say it has to be practical, but the reality is that when you listen to this story, it doesn't meet the practical part, because when you look at what is the platform today, there is really no reason for me to go to Mars, but he has the vision and he has the passion, and what somebody like Elon Musk has managed to do, or as a leader, you need to be able to rally few people around you that they believe in same vision and direction, that everybody with a focus can march toward one direction. And I think everybody else, definitely this is a massive project, and there is a need for governments and government sector to participate. But sometimes government need the practicality in order to move. So having these things initiated by successful entrepreneurs that slowly also brings government behind them, that's always a good thing.
There's a lot of opportunity for the maybe folks in here who are interested in going to space, maybe to start something.
Space, yes.
Yeah.
He has the solution to sex. Find the solution to fashion.
There it is. Following up on that, on the vision a little bit, setting up a culture where I think ideas trump even personalities as outsized as Elon Musk, is an important thing to do. I was part of a team that 2 years ago landed a rover on its wheels, dangling 20 feet below a rocket-powered jetpack. This is a crazy idea. The guy who hired me at JPL told me the day I told him about our idea that it was crazy, that this would fucking work, and that you're crazy for even thinking about it. But if you got to set up and JPL is a good place for this kind of culture that prizes the ideas and the fundamentals behind them. That if you stick to your guns and the fundamentals back you up, the physics back you up, that idea should win. And that often, is something that gets lost, I think, in a lot of cultures, a lot of corporate cultures where they're dominated by certain outsized personalities or certain people. You got to find the right ideas, regardless of where they come from, and even if they're crazy, If they're backed up by fundamentals, you got to work the problem.
Sometimes practicality kills idea, right? Because if you start calculating the revenue and if you start calculating the return on investment, it doesn't add up. Why do it?
Right.
You know, but that's what I mean. That sometimes the traditional practical approach of calculating things in order to get things done, especially when it comes to disruptive businesses or disruptive ideas, it doesn't work.
It can open up new business lines for you too. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we hadn't gone after Viking landed in the 70s. NASA hadn't gone to Mars until 20 years later, when this ragtag group of folks put together Mars Pathfinder. Right, it was this mission that looked like nothing like anything before it. We're going to land with airbags. That's not how we land on places. We land on places like the moon and Mars with legs. What are you talking about? Get out of here with these crazy airbag things. But suddenly, this mission that was done pretty much on the cheap for a NASA-type mission kind of reinvigorated Mars exploration. It's become, you know, a couple $1 billion a year type of endeavor for NASA, and it's now become the focus of what we're trying to do. So sometimes these crazy ideas that are out there, you know, even when there's not a market for it and there hasn't been a market for it, or we think that market is dead, can bring out a new thing that can get very popular.
So it's really interesting, and I think the work that's happening across all of your companies is pushing us towards that kind of a culture of ideas that are going to change our lives. And I wonder from that standpoint, the acceleration of technology going at an exponential rate, what impact that will have on our lives today. I mean, will we see robotics starting to take our jobs to the point where we have to be even more advanced in our education? What kind of implications will it have for the folks in this room when we talk about Mars reaching type of advancements?
Yeah, I can't comment on that because that's one thing I was also covering at Teri's session. It has an interesting paradox impact on us, right? Because from one side, for instance, the human connection and communication, the touch and you know having face-to-face connection with people in today's society, at least with advancement on technology, is diminishing. But then on the other hand, speaking of sex, there are companies that are actually working on materials. It's nano materials, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. That now you're creating this type of wearable gloves that are connected, the nanomaterials are connected with a very thin layer of communication. So as you touch a surface, the touch can get communicated and transferred as a sense to another individual. So what if while our day-to-day face-to-face communication is dying, we can actually communicate via senses? And finally, you can actually know what an individual's true feelings are. So you guys probably have seen that comedy movie that the guy couldn't lie and the entire world was turning upside down. So that's where we're actually going. On the other hand, with the advancement of robotics, jobs are getting cut, right? But on the other hand, operating robotics, IT management of robotics are creating new jobs. When you look at what Uber did in our society, right, on one side it's killing the job of taxi driver and the business of taxi, but on the other side it gives freedom to every individual to utilize and generate revenue from their own personal car. Privacy is diminishing to the advantage of corporates, to the advantage of government, and to the advantage of hackers. But then on the other side, it promotes transparency, because the same way that government knows about us, we know about government, and we get the information much faster about government. So those are some of the impacts that I see.
Terry, you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that kind of captured it. I really don't have anything to add on that.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought Fay answered that pretty well. And you know, I think it's very important in terms of education, young education and children, that we teach them how to code, so that they can be the next disruptor. There's so many opportunities once, the robots are created. You need the inventors of the robot or the inventors of the next wave of robotics. So I think absolutely there's opportunity.
I build and operate robots for a living, so I guess that's, they're an extension of us.
So your job is secure.
That is my job, right? But to some extent, that's the idea, right? I mean, that's the kind of job that we want the future people to take, right? And that the robots will do the jobs that we are not ready to do, unwilling to do, or can't do, right? I mean, the things like exploring Mars, we're not ready to do that. It's certainly cheaper right now for us to, and possible for us to explore it with robots. That's what we do. But kind of building on the, you asked about what, how technology impacts us and all. To me, it's always been more about what you do with what you have, as opposed to necessarily pushing out what you have, pushing out the boundaries per se. You can reassemble the old piece of technology into something kind of new. Curiosity, which you saw a picture of there, landed a couple years ago, is flying inside a RAD 750. That's the commercial version of that is called a PowerPC 750. It's 133 megahertz. It's the same commercial processor, or at least it's the radiation hardened version of a commercial processor that was in my wife's freshman year computer. Okay? The phone in my pocket is orders of magnitude, several orders of magnitude, more powerful than what we're flying and operating every day on Mars. Did we push the envelope on that end? Not really, but we didn't have to, right? It's what we did with it and surrounded it with that made it different. So I think there's opportunity there too, that you don't necessarily have to make the best widget of certain type, but you recombine it with some other things and you get something new.
That's a really interesting point that we could use to actually open it up to the audience now. So if you all have questions, there'll be a mic being passed around, and we start down here.
Hi, thank you all for your time. My name is Ron. I'm a second-year MBA student here. So you guys talked a lot about adapting the Mars environment to humans and the human condition, and I was curious to hear maybe long-term how you think humans will have to adapt, whether mentally, physically, to a new environment like that, and whether we should try to adapt the environment to us or vice versa, adapt to the environment as humans have in the past, and what those changes might look like. Thank you.
Who would like to take that?
I can go if you want. And, certainly we're looking at things. Mars doesn't have a lot of the protections that Earth has. Radiation is a big deal. There's very little. Our atmosphere here on Earth protects us from radiation. That's a reason why I believe Stephen wants to go underground. If you go underground, you get some radiation protection. That's a big deal. We have to ask questions too about whether the people who are going to go there are going to come back, because that adds different problems as well. If you live in 3/8 gravity, for a long time, you will not be as strong when you come back here. It will cause you problems, especially if you're also going to spend probably 6-9 months on the way there in zero gravity. We should ask ourselves whether this is a one-way trip or not, and that would change our answer a little bit about how we adapt. I think until there are a critical mass of people there, the social separation from the rest of the Earth is going to be a big psychological problem for our deep space explorers. Not being able to have a conversation, not being able to sit and interact on this panel is something you're just not going to be able to do it. We can't go faster than the speed of light with communications. So you're going to have these situations where you tape yourself talking to somebody, you wait for their tape response, for however long. It's not the same as talking to someone right in front of you.
Yeah, although if you put a newborn baby there that they raise in that environment, probably is going to be different, right? So I think at the end of the day, is a natural process of evolution where humans adapt to the environment and then impact the environment, and environment comes back and impact human. But we see some of for instance, one of the new things that has started is called using the technology again, like cyber anxiety, where people are quite addicted to social networking, for instance, Facebook and other social network, Tinder, this, that, and they're constantly nervous. And actually this is a real psychological problem that has turned into, and others similar to that these individuals become quite addicted to how the people in social network responds to their post, like it, share it, these type of things. So we already seeing that how the technology kind of kicking back and this impacting the human psychological process that we're used to. And that actually raises an interesting point, because although the technology is getting advanced, but as human race, we're pretty immature in how to utilize it and how to put it at use. Now are we going to adapt to that, and for the first time technology is leading to the human race? It's one thing to be found as we go through time.
One of the things I was going to add, Ron, it's a very interesting question. It made me kind of think about all of us as leaders and individuals. How well do we adapt right? Because businesses change, industries change, jobs change, et cetera. And I'd say on one side, there is a fair amount of flexibility and evolution we as a human species go through. You think of now the access to information that people have. I compare my parents to myself or even our kids. Just the ability to kind of process all this stuff going on at the same time is very different because of the internet and social media, et cetera. But where I worry is there's a bandwidth of where people can change and adjust, and past that, and it's a little bit what Fay's alluding to, it becomes too much. People can't adjust that much and they can perish. So it brings back again a bit of the question of who's going to Mars here, because if you're painting this picture, it's broad society. I don't know that's the case. You could probably self-select a group that has shown a disposition to some more rapid ability to evolve and adapt. But I do worry that a dramatic piece, and this is one of the challenges of technology and innovation, is it can get so far ahead of you that you disconnect. And so I think there's probably a bandwidth, and past that it's tough.
Yeah, and I think to your point in terms of leadership, I think the question is also get raised as, are we responsible? Mm-hmm. Do we have responsibility, and should we think and lead responsibly? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I almost wonder the people who are going to be the so-called pioneers, who are going to be the first 80,000 people to set up a colony on Mars. You're going to have obviously uber rich people who have no other challenges or desires left in life, so this is one thing. And then you have, in my opinion, psychotic people who really don't have anything to live for here and just want a new life, want to start all over. So if you can imagine, these are the people who you're starting your colony and who are going to procreate. I don't know if you want that to be your next generation.
Or that's how Australia originally
right.
got created by shipping. By shipping criminals there somewhere far enough that they can't do anything else, and that's how the entire society got created. That's
it's a nice place.
It's a nice place now.
Let's get another question here.
Hi guys. Thank you so much for speaking with us. My name's Alex. I'm a first year here. Just wanted to ask a question regarding the role of robots in developing Mars. There was a panel yesterday which really argued for the point that robots should be the ones who actually go colonize Mars, develop for us before we have to send any humans there. I'd just like to get your comments on that.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. I mean, people need a lot of things, that robots don't. I can send my rover through the atmosphere, and it can go to 15 Earth Gs on the way through and not care, where if you tried to send me through that, I'd be a pile of mush. There's a lot of things you can do with robots ahead of time. I think that's an excellent idea. Certainly all our plans are, all of NASA's plans call for a heavy robotic presence as part of the kind of the laying the groundwork before people get there. And we want to demonstrate all these capabilities to be able to support people before the people get there. So it's not a situation where the people have to set everything up when they get there. Hopefully their house is waiting for them when we get there.
Just out of curiosity, is the recycling program in NASA for robots? Because we're not going to bring them back here.
Not yet. Maybe someday people will find them, but they end where they lay. So.
Other questions? Sir? So would you mind?
Where do we stand with colonizing the moon?
The question was, where do we stand with colonizing the moon?
We don't, I think, is the short version. Nobody, as far as I'm aware, is trying to do much to colonize the moon. There are various, certainly more robots appearing there, more than there have been in some time. Apollo really wasn't about colonizing, or in some sense exploring the moon. It was a race, more of an act of war than anything else. It's not something that's in our current plans right now. We're focused on Mars.
There are certain advantages, certainly the proximity of the moon to the Earth should be an advantage. Can we not overcome some of it?
No, I think it's a situation. I think, like somebody else mentioned, that there's certainly capability. We can do it with enough resources. We could do it. There's a question of whether we want to do it.
I guess the question is that why Mars, not Moon?
Yeah, I think whatever befalls Earth can befall the moon as well in some sense. There are more resources available on Mars. It's certainly more Earth-like in terms of the processes that both created it and that manage it today. There is water there. There probably is some water in the Aitken Basin on the southern pole of the moon. That's about it. There is water in many places on Mars. Not as much as Stephen said, but enough to think about many different places on the planet. It has an atmosphere, which is good for many things. So it's a place that is probably in the end more hospitable, except for the fact that it's so much further away. But it's mostly a place we haven't been, right? And that tickles the exploration part of us.
Any questions? Right here.
Hi. Oh, okay, it's on. Yeah, I'm a first year here. My name's Daniel, and I'm just wondering, how do you think space exploration will actually become profitable? Because a lot of you guys mentioned it requires a lot of leadership, and currently we don't really have an answer to how are we exactly going to make it, like, inspire people to actually invest in these kind of ventures into space. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on that. Thanks.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm. There's a joke in the aerospace industry. The best way to make a small fortune in the aerospace industry is to start with a big one. In terms of making it profitable, there are certainly sectors in the aerospace that are very profitable, aerospace and defense. In many ways, what Elon Musk is doing by reducing the cost of launch is destroying a ton of shareholder value, probably for Boeing and Lockheed Martin. And probably even in some sense for himself, right? They could charge a lot more for and has been demonstrated for launch vehicles, but that's not really what they're trying to do. I think there's some element of that too, right? That people aren't doing this to make money, right? It's not why we explore for the most part. You can make money along the way, and there are people who are going to make a ton of money along the way, eventually, or even right now. But we don't go to Mars. We don't send rovers there to make money. Right? We go there because we are explorers.
I think it's starting with tourism industry for the rich and famous. And actually, I do know another group that now working with likes of Elon Musk and Richard Branson on sending people to actually watch the eclipse that happens every month when you're above the Earth. And I was laughing about it, but it's a serious business that they want to do that and send people to actually watch the eclipse.
Yeah, there's certainly a space tourism aspect.
And the tourism is the first one on rich and famous, but then when you put the tourism side by side with somebody's going to start a restaurant business, it's one of those things that you don't calculate the revenue and return on investment. It's just that you're establishing a huge corporate that in future is going to generate revenue somehow.
Yeah, and I think this is a little bit why, my own view is I think government's got to be involved in this because to prove an ROI on this, I was thinking maybe the development environment is better in Mars so it lowers the cost. It's never going to be enough to counter the cost. So you've got to say there's something, societal. Survival, research for something major that you could basically pool a lot of resources. Otherwise, you get a few people spending some money to do it for a thrill for the moment.
Yeah.
I don't care how much Tang we drink. That's not why we went to space, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the reason why we do it.
Great. So I think we're coming to the end of our time here. I want to first of all thank everybody for coming today and thank the panelists as well. If you all give them a round of applause.